Hi, friends. I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. This week I've been living in 1 Samuel chapter 4, verses 1 and 3. I wasn't sure this week how much I was going to learn from these verses. These verses are about when the Israelites were defeated by the Philistines. And what stood out to me is when they came back after they had been defeated. The elders of Israel ask, why did the Lord bring defeat on us today before the Philistines? They automatically blamed it on God. Why did God not let us win? And then they went on to say, let us bring back the ark of the Lord's covenant from Shiloh so that he may go with us and save us from the hands of our enemies. So they blamed their defeat on God and then said, wait, let's go get something that will bring God closer to us. They had everything they needed within them, and God was with them the whole time. But they didn't even question what they were missing or what they were doing wrong. I first wanted to go and see what were the Israelites and the Philistines fighting about. They were fighting over the land or over the control of the land that God had given Israel. When I learned that, I thought to myself, why would they even put themselves in a position to fight? What would be the purpose of that? God gave you this land. Do you think God would let someone take it away? So did they even really need to be fighting? That was another question I had. You didn't even sit with God and say, hey, Philistines are going to take our land that you gave us. Are we even supposed to be going into battle? These were not even men that were trained to battle. Israel was still 12 tribes. Those tribes would come together. They would leave their crops, their farms, their whatever they were doing and come and fight. Israel wasn't an army that was conditioned, that was trained, that had all the weapons that they needed. They were just men coming together to fight for what their leaders said was right. And they were going up against an army that all they did was train. That's what their job was. And then they were defeated. But instead of coming back to camp and saying, you know what? We weren't prepared for that. We weren't prepared to go up against an army such as this, and that's okay. But if we want a battle, we have to make some changes. But they didn't do that. They said, why did the Lord bring defeat on us today? But they didn't even ask God if they should be going to war. They didn't sit down and say, hey, God, listen, Philistines want the land that you gave us. What do you want us to do? And then sit quietly. Just wait. Because I can guarantee you, if God gave them the land, God would have told them what to do in this situation. And that's what I learned this week. Actually, I learned a lot of things this week. I went from the beginning of the week in these verses, learning one thing, to even last night, going, wait a minute, what about this? And couldn't this mean this? And wow, how that's been playing just in my life in 24 hours. At the beginning of the week, what I realized in my life with these verses is that even now in my life, sometimes I ask God a question and I don't even sit still long enough to hear the answer. I don't sit still long enough to let God even move in what God needs to be doing and what God wants to be doing. I move for God. I literally will ask the question and then be like, God, I got this, but I'll call on you if I need you. And that's what the Israelites did. God, why did you let the Philistines defeat us? And then didn't even wait for the answer. In fact, there are many times in my life that I won't even call on God, but then I call out when it doesn't go my way or when I'm upset at how it ended up. If I had a vision of God most of my life, it would just be God shaking his head like, oh man, she did it again. She did it again. When is she ever going to learn? Even in my growing, even in my healing, sometimes I don't stay out of God's business because I want it so bad. And I want it in the time that I want it, not in the time that is good for me. I've been working on just sitting and being comfortable in waiting for the answer. I've been working on saying, God, here it is. You got this. And I'm here if you need me to do anything. I've been learning to work with God, not let God do everything, not me do everything, but I've been learning to work with God, sitting still so I can see the breadcrumbs that God's throwing my way and I can follow them. Just like this apartment that I'm moving into. I said, God, you know what the deal is. I got to move. I'm going to leave it in your hands. And I'm just going to sit and be quiet. I would catch myself going, I need to start looking for apartments. And then I would say, no, you don't. No, you don't. It's not time. We have other things that we're doing. That's not what you need to be doing. That's not what's in front of you right now. But in my past, that's what I'd be focused on because I would need to resolve that problem. So recently, I've been sitting here just being, just listening. Sometimes I hear, sometimes I have to wait more. I hate sitting and waiting. I hate being uncomfortable. But growth is uncomfortable. Growth is really uncomfortable. Israel asked, why has the Lord defeated us? But they already ran towards a resolution before God even had a second to answer. They skipped the listening part. They ran to get the ark of the Lord, a big box with things in it. That's another lesson that I learned this week. What things do I run to when I feel uncomfortable? What things do I reach for when this growth starts to feel a little heavy? When this healing starts to feel uncomfortable, what do I reach for? I'm a fat kid. I reach for food. It doesn't matter if I'm celebrating, if I'm sad, if I'm mad, if I'm frustrated, if I'm happy. Food is a comfort for me. The other thing I reach for is trying to fix things, trying to solve things. I look for things outside of me to fix or resolve so I can feel better just for that moment. And when I fix something and resolve something, that only feels good for a minute, just like food fixes that feeling for a minute. It's temporary. I also reach out to people because that's what's comfortable to me instead of just sitting with myself. And this week, I've really been working on reaching out for nothing and no one and just sitting in this uncomfortableness, just being uncomfortable And it doesn't feel good. It feels uncomfortable. I've had to catch myself several times. And I've had to say to myself, that's not your business. Or, hey, that's not a reciprocal relationship. That's not what we need to be doing. We don't need to get back into that pattern. See, all of these are patterns that used to make me feel better that I've been working on breaking. I'm learning not to reach for things that make me feel better in these moments of growth. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to stop growing. I've realized that for me, my growth is more important than anything that I'm willing to reach out for. Because whatever I reach out for is fleeting. It only helps me or makes me feel better for a moment. This growth, this healing that I've been working on for a while now has transformed my life and has made me realize this is the person that I want to be, not that person that reaches for something to make her feel comfortable in the uncomfortable moments. And that's all they are. They're moments. And it made me realize, wow, I've been reaching all of my life. Every time I got uncomfortable, I reached for something. That pattern of reaching kept me overeating, overgiving, not requiring reciprocal relationships, not setting boundaries. And that's what Israel did. They reached for the ark because the thought of God allowing them to be defeated made them uncomfortable. But they didn't even consider how they contributed to their defeat. They weren't prepared to fight. They weren't prepared to battle, not this size of an army. But instead of saying, man, we did that, we lost that battle, they said, God, why did you let us be defeated? Another thing I learned this week is how many times do I blame things on God, the situation, something outside myself, instead of going within and saying, I did that. I did that. And I've had to look back at my life, my whole life, and see all the things that I contributed that got me right here. All the things that I did where I could have chosen something different, but I didn't. For whatever reason, to please someone, to help someone, me being selfish, whatever it may be, no one made me make my choices. I made every single one of them. God didn't do it. My relationships didn't do it. People in my life didn't do it. I did it. I am the only one that had the power to choose. And I chose what I chose and had to suffer the consequences that came with the choices of my actions. In my past, I would have made excuses for those actions. I would have said, but so and so, but this circumstance, but now it doesn't matter what happened to me. I know I could not control the things that happened to me as a child, but as I became older, as I became an adult, I had a chance to change those patterns, a chance to understand myself, get to know myself, heal myself. The same choices that I'm making right now to grow and to heal, I had those same choices as a young adult, and I chose something different. God didn't choose that for me. Someone else didn't choose that for me. I did. And I can't turn around and say, but this person did this, but this happened to me when I was a child, but this was my circumstance. Yes, all those things were probably accurate, but I am the only one that could change my life. And unfortunately, I didn't choose to change my life until now, and that's okay too. But just like the Israelites, I can't blame it on someone because I made the choices. And just like the Israelites, I can't reach for an item to make me feel better because of the choices that I made in my past that got me here. I have to sit and be uncomfortable and take accountability for every choice that I made in my life. And the leaders, the elders of Israel, didn't want to take accountability for losing that battle. And sometimes we lose battles. Sometimes that's the lesson. Sometimes the lesson is, how are you going to handle losing a battle? How are you going to lick your wounds and still be okay? And give yourself the grace you need to get up and get back out there and do what needs to be done. Maybe instead of Israel blaming God and running to get the ark, maybe what they should have said is, hey, God, you got this, but I'm here if you need me. If you need me to go on that battlefield, I'm willing to do that. And we're ready. Look, we have all of our men gathered. We're ready to fight for our land that you gave us, but we're going to wait until we know that's what we're supposed to do. I think the Israelites forgot that in the moment of their decisions, what they were missing was God. I've been there because sometimes I make decisions, and in those decisions, what is missing is God, because God sees everything that I can't. And God could see everything the Israelites couldn't. I'm 5'4", technically 5'3¼ I can't see very far. I'm not that tall, but God can see everything. God has seen everything in my life from God's level. When I was climbing the corporate ladder, I thought the battle was money. God could see it was identity. When I was fixing everyone, I thought the battle was helping people. But God could see it was carrying burdens that weren't mine to carry. When food became my safe place, I thought my battle was appetite. But God could see it as my longing for comfort and security. When I kept reaching out to mend relationships, I thought the battle was keeping everyone together. But God could see that it was learning healthy boundaries and reciprocity. From where I stood, every battle looked different. But from God's level, God could see all those battles were connected. I resonate with Israel because Israel could only see the current battle that they were in, and that's me. I can only see the current battle that I'm in. But God sees our entire story.